In our first reading from the book of Isaiah, the first sentence, "The way of the just is smooth, the path of the just you make level." Maybe think about the different roads we travel down in our lives. And at times, maybe have to turn around or take a detour. I think today's saint is a great example of that. St. Camillus de Lillis, at 6'6", even taller than Father Valerian, I believe. He towered over men and women of his time. Yet it would take the loss of his health and his father's inheritance too, to allow him to grow, to become a spiritual giant. He was born in Italy in 1550. He left home at the age of 17 to fight with the Venetian army against the Turkish invaders. It was during this time that his leg became infected with a serious disease that would remain with him for the rest of his life. In addition, he became addicted to gambling, and he became penniless by the age of 24. And like St. Ignatius, it was during his convalescence from a war injury that this future saint experienced the compassion of God, in his case, through I'm going to mispronounce her name, the Capuchins who cared for him at his lowest point. It was through their preaching that he was moved to convert his life, and so he wished to join their order to give his life to Jesus. However, his chronic leg condition was the reason they denied him admittance to the order. Undeterred, on fire for his faith, he returned to Rome to work at the very hospital that he had first been treated for his infection. And inspired by Jesus' words, "I was ill, and you visited me," St. Camillus heroically gave every ounce of his energy to caring for those with incurable illnesses. Ironically, he impressed the hospital administrators so much that they put him in charge of finance. Now imagine that kind of turnaround. A man who was too sick to be admitted to a religious order, tirelessly caring for those that most could not. And a man who was unable to control his own impulsive gambling, being entrusted with the very resources of the whole hospital. For me, if the story had ended at this point, that would have been enough. But God wasn't done with St. Camillus. The Lord truly heard his cry to become a priest and to serve those most in need. And he inspired St. Camillus to complete his seminary training, to be ordained a priest, and to improve the deplorable conditions at that hospital by getting other young men to serve the sickest and the poorest of the poor. And with the support of the future St. Philip Neri, at the age of 55, St. Camillus founded his own order, the Servants of the Sick, to care for the sick in the hospitals and prisons and in their homes. They would even go out into the battlefields, and they formed the first known military ambulance units. And this giant of a man did all of this while sick and in pain for most of his adult life. My brothers and sisters, when we hear a story like St. Camillus, we're reminded of how God's compassion for us begins before we first perceive our need for it. And we can also see how when we experience a dead end in our lives or where we'd like to go, that God can lead us to where we can serve and find true meaning in our lives. In his early years, God blessed Camillus with the strength and stature and wealth. War and a gambling addiction stripped him of all these, and penniless and ill and physically weakened, God was at work on his soul. He moved him from self-interest to love of God and those in most need. God gave Camillus a reason to overcome his own pain and disappointment. I believe there's a lesson for each of us who experiences diminishment, whether it is physical, emotional, financial, or in any other way. to listen to Jesus' compassionate words. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. St. Camillus, pray for us.